Breaking Barriers. This program raises a variety of issues related to the attitudes many of us have towards disabilities and the disabled people. The following workshop took place in Washington, D.C., bringing together minorities from across the nation. Legal experts who have studied, written about, and in some cases influenced the body of laws that affect the disabled feel that in the past, discrimination against disabled people in ways parallel the same discrimination based on race that exists in the United States. Did you know African Americans represent 30% of the 4.1 million people with disabilities in the United States? Other people of color, Indians, comprise 17.9% of that population. Hispanics constitute 19%.
Back to one thing that was said, gentlemen, in terms of what's the differences, if there are any, in terms of race. Is there any real difference based on disability as opposed to the stories that persons who are simply persons of color have? I believe that, in a sense, yes, the stories are somewhat the same, except I've got to tell you, I wasn't talked bad about by white kids. I wasn't run away from by white kids. I was run away from, as I was growing up, trying to hang out in my neighborhood by the same little black kids like me. And the reason they ran away from me is because I wasn't like you see me right now. I had braces up to my doggone thighs. And they were scared, well, geez, he's either going to hurt himself or somehow by being around him, his cerebral palsy is going to flow over there and jump on me. So that, in that sense, I have some bad memories of being a child because black kids didn't want to deal. I mean,
the irony today is that probably many of those kids are either still standing on the corner or they're dead.
Yes.
Right.
And I hear where you're coming from.
But also,
and you're right. But that's also a reality.
But also some of those kids now are probably more accepting and have higher expectations of persons with disabilities because they didn't catch cerebral palsy from you. You didn't fall and hurt yourself. So I see it going both ways.
It's such a complex issue.
But there's a formula. There's a formula that has all. I mean, the literature is there. We're asking really some questions that the literature is there. In the stigmata literature, any group of people will be made outcast members if through race, physical abomination, or lifestyle. Those are the three things. They've already got it worked out in the literature for you. There's a formula, and all people in this room would fit one of the formulas. So, I mean, I'm just on another formula, but you out too, on your formula.
No, I understand
so,
that, and
so
that's
one of the differences. You have abomination of physical, the nonverbal. People size you up non-verbally. You have, you can become an outcast member or stigmatized by virtue of your racial background. And you can become an out-group person, an outcast by virtue of your lifestyle. That's it. That's the whole human condition.
You know what I love to do, man? I love to do this. I love to go dressed up real nice, and I like to go to a club and sit down. I like to walk in where there's nobody that knows that I have a disability, especially females. And I like to start the icon. And then when they play a nice tune, I like to get up and walk up to them. You should see their reaction. It's like, you know. By the time I walk across the hall and say, may I know the answer is going to be no, because they were looking at me from here up. They didn't see me walking. You see.
So the disability does compound the situation.
That's what we're trying to say. We're not.
One last thing that's a little different, because you're right. But the question that I have, and almost it's a plea that I have, is you are in a unique position to represent as advocates. We all are, but you are particularly. One of the concerns that I have in this particular conference I've yet to hear much about individuals with cognitive impairments who clearly benefits may even be less, the opportunities are less. I don't know that, but somehow in the need to be advocates, it's kind of looking at a broad spectrum of folk who are really underrepresented today.
Okay, but do you see receiving community can't accept us, and we're the best of it. Okay? So now you're saying, now we got to deal with societal people who nobody wants. You don't want to deal with your schizophrenics. You don't want to deal. You don't want to deal with.
Well,
I understand.
I understand what you're saying.
I'm suggesting
the point that if we can't, as a kind of a collectivity of people, and it is a choir today, that it's these group of individuals are not here,
right,
and probably are going to have difficulty getting spokespersons as eloquent as you.
And what we need to deal with that, because I must admit to you,
that's just another kind of.
I must admit to you that I do deal with persons who have head injury. I do deal with persons who have schizophrenia, epilepsy, any quote unquote the hidden disabilities.
But I don't get the question, because I mean, really, if you haven't learned the skills to accept me and hone in on those skills to accept me, what are you overwhelming yourself? The same skills that you've got to learn to accept me into your community will be the same skills, maybe with another intensity and at other levels, of all the people who you're saying are not represented here.
My concern is that very often individuals who are at the top of a particular group, and I'm talking just say in general of individuals who are had the breaks as minority folks, oftentimes because you live in an environment which can put you in a position, and we know of that, where your concerns are not inclusive of the entire depth of your community. I'm saying we can't afford